Continuing on addressing the next set of accusations or list of indicators which supposedly identify a man who is a supporter of the crime of rape as submitted by this blogger who goes by the name of Eve's Daughter. I swear. Continuing to her next indicator where she says, he expresses enjoyment of movies / musicals / TV shows / stage plays in which women are sexually demeaned or presented as sexual objects. So based upon that one sentence, I assume that it's safe to expect that this Eve's Daughter will use that exact same principle to demand a boycott of Tyler Perry movies and his stage plays, and of any books, plays, and movies that are based on any of the works of Toni Morrison, right? Because those of us who keep track of the works of especially these two particular luminaries within the African American communities particularly, but they seem to run a common theme, which is that men are dogs, men are evil, men are abusive, men are no good, they're not good fathers, they're not good husbands, all they want to do is mistreat and abuse women. And so all throughout their creative works they insist on spotlighting that as the stigma which portrays men, or specifically in their cases black men, but we can highlight any number of examples where it's not limited down to just black men. There are enough examples of your typical average white male similarly being shoved in front of the train by clearly anti-male misandristic feminist propaganda. The UK is awash with stuff like this. But I'm just using these two as the more prominent examples. So for all the women who flock to all these Tyler Perry movies and to all these movies that are based on the works of Toni Morrison and on their stage plays, since what you described as the types of movies and stage plays, etc., that men patronize for entertainment and that equates into them being a supporter of rape, then using your same exact guideline, what does it say about women who flock to stage plays and movies and novels or whatever by people like Tyler Perry and Toni Morrison, taking into consideration the basic themes of their works? Now this next indicator is classic. She writes, he tells or laughs at jokes involving women being attacked, sexually hoodwinked, or sexually harassed. Now granted, such things are low class. You get no argument from me based on that. However, if you're going to use this as an indicator to identify men who are supporters of the crime of rape, then please explain to me what exactly it says about women who do the exact same thing. Only difference is the sexual roles are reversed and it's men who are the brunt of the joke, if you will. But let's just assume, just for the sake of this particular discussion, that you agree with me and such jokes or such humor is rather low class and unbecoming. And let's just assume that you don't laugh at all the TV shows and at all the commercials and whatnot where they show men, and especially dads, as being clueless idiots and incompetent buffoons, or anything where men and boys are shown being physically assaulted with things like kicks to the groin, overwhelmingly by women and girls. Let's just assume, let's just pretend that you don't slap your lap and roll all over the floor with laughter whenever you see so-called humorous situations or hear so-called humorous jokes that involve men being so abused. Let's just play that as a possibility. Do you translate that over into situations which involve real life circumstances? I mean, do you laugh it up with your girlfriends when they tell you things like they duped a man into thinking that he's the father of her child and that she's getting paid child support on his ignorance because he was defrauded into being cuckolded into a child which he has no clue is not his? Do you find humor and amusement in something like that from one of your own girlfriends when she explains that that's what she's done? Do you give your girlfriends the high fives and big toothy grins and pump up the power fist saying, "Right on, sister," when she tells you the outcome of her bitter divorce and tells you how the man that she divorced was raked over the coals, how she got to get out of the situation with the house and the car plus alimony payments? Do you congratulate her when she tells you that she keeps her kids from seeing their dad or having any time spent with their dad, all the while he's being forced by the legal system to pay child support regardless whether or not he gets any sort of visitation rights? Is that a source of merriment for you? Or how about when the girlfriends joke around about, "Girl, I threw all his stuff out in the yard and I poured bleach all over it and I set that stuff on fire and then I called him at work telling him he better get there real quick before any of his stuff that I threw out in the yard starts to grow legs." Is that funny to you? And we're talking about real life now. We're not talking about TVs or movies or stage plays or anything of the sort. We're talking about stuff that goes on in actual real life. And don't dare try to deny that these sorts of little girly gatherings where y'all share and exchange notes on these sorts of things, don't try to claim that they don't happen. They happen more often than we care to imagine. It's almost as if it's a rite of passage where women get together and talk about how they made the separations from the man that they were involved with, how they transformed his life into a living hell simply for the fact that we didn't get along or that we had to go our own separate ways. How you couldn't just do anything amicably, but it had to involve something to do with destruction of personal property or the damage of his psyche. So again, I ask the question based upon your own statement about what identifies a man who's a supporter of rape. Again, consider my counterpoint and ask yourself, what does this say about women who engage in this sort of behavior? Are you even woman enough to offer up a suggestion? I've got time enough for one more, maybe two more, if I can speed things up a little bit. Next statement. He characterizes the self-sexualizing behavior of some women, such as wearing makeup or high heels, as evidence of women's desire to, quote, get, unquote, a man. And my response to that is, what other purpose do these things serve? I mean, think about it for a moment. What do those painful and awkward shoes that they wear, what is the rational argument behind those? Because if you try to present a rational argument, I'll shoot you down, because there is no rational argument for anything that awkward and that torturous. Look at the footwear men wear. We wear footwear for one main reason: practicality. And even when we're being stylish, there's still a practicality behind the footwear that we wear. Because even when we want to be stylish, there are two more concerns that come into play when deciding what kind of footwear to put on our feet. One is protection, and the other is comfort. And with most women's fashions, you get neither of those. In fact, you get the absolute opposite of those. So again, what is the purpose for such footwear? Because we hear constantly women complaining about how painful it is to wear their pumps or their high heels or whatever type of shoe that they're wearing. Always complaining about foot problems. Always complaining about their ankles hurting. And protection, the footwear that women put on their feet, offers next to no, in fact, I won't even say next to no, it offers absolutely no protection. You are completely exposed to the elements. You may as well just walk around barefoot. There's so little protection from women's footwear. So again, I ask the question, what is the purpose for women's fashionable footwear if it's not for the purpose of attracting male attention? Tell me. And the same with all that time-consuming, pore-clogging face cake that you slather all over your faces. What is the practical purpose behind that gunk? Covering your face in all these powders and these chemicals and all these fish scales, in case most of y'all didn't realize that all that lipstick that you're wearing, one of the primary components of most lipsticks is fish scales. So you're not too keen on the idea of cleaning the fish that your husband brings home from his little fishing trip with his buddies. But you'll sure lather the doggone scales of the thing onto the outer portions of your mouths though, won't you? And then you expect us to kiss you on the lips after you smeared yourself with that garbage. But again, why do you do it? What's the practical purpose behind it? What other purpose does it serve other than to attract the attention of men? And as I said in my previous commentary in this series, if you want to lay the claim that it's something that you do for yourself or something that you do so you can feel good about yourself, then again, the question is, why don't you do it when you're at home alone? Because if it's all being done just for you, then you shouldn't have to wait when you're going out attention whoring before you actually do it. It will be an everyday routine regardless of what situation you're in, where you're going, or where you're not going. And I'll use another example. What's with shaving and waxing what you refer to as your bikini line? I'm not even going to ask you about the extremes of plucking out all of your pubic hair, but let's just stick to this whole bikini line thing. What's that about? Why are you ashamed of your natural growth? But oh, I understand, I know what the excuse is going to be. It's encapsulated right there in the name that you've applied to the area, bikini line. And so the excuse is, well, we don't want our fuzz sticking out outside of the outer regions of our swimsuits. We don't want to reveal all that stuff. We want to look clean and smooth down there. We don't want anybody to see our stuff. And that may sound like a rational, reasonable excuse to you, but that only leads me to ask the next follow-up question, which is, why are you wearing such revealing swimsuits in the first place? If you're that concerned about your pubic hair in the bikini line region and not wanting to show it off, then I ask you, what's wrong or what's the problem with wearing the types of swimming suits that cover it all up? Why are your swimsuits getting smaller and smaller and shorter and showing more and more skin, especially around your sweet spot, to where nowadays there's hardly enough material in the darn swimsuit to barely cover your kitty crevice? So why do you insist on going to the beaches or going to the public swimming parks or lying out on a blanket somewhere in the park dressed in the skimpiest of skimpy outfits, barely covering anything up anymore? How can you do all that and, number one, claim that it's not for male attention, and number two, get all upset and indignant if somebody should start looking at you and treating you as a sexual object when you just flaunt it out there like that? And so you're going to fault men for labeling you as attention whores and claiming that the only reason that you do such things is to either get a man or to, at the very least, command the attention of men? Are you going to try to, with a serious, straight face, try to toss that line of bull at us? And then have the audacity, the absolute gall, to say that such a man calling you out on your game like that equates into his being a supporter of rape? Get the you-know-where out of here. That's all I have time for this time around. I'll be back with another installment in the days to come. Talented 10th.